Hey folks, Lee Smith, Spouses Buying Houses. I hang out on the forums occasionally. I try and avoid them because they take up a lot of time, and I try to get I usually get overly detailed, and I just eats a lot of my time. Anyways, I was hanging out on the forums, and a lot of people were talking about Turnkey here in Indianapolis. And I was looking on my YouTube statistics, and I saw that there's a lot of people talking about a certain provider that I don't think is doing business here anymore. Turnkey provider is not doing business here in Indy anymore. Anyways, last year, end of 2017, beginning of 2018, most of 2018, we were dealing with a lot of fallout. A lot of investors who had realized that there was a big, huge Titanic going down, and so they were going crazy trying to find another provider, another property manager. Anyways, so I want to talk about, over the I think it was probably 9 months to a year that we dealt with all that. I want to tell you what my speculation is that happened, how this Titanic sank. And so let's kind of get into it. There was a company here in town that was doing a tremendous amount of business turnkey-wise. I didn't work with them. But they were doing according to my title company, who I use a lot, they were closing 100 to 150 properties a month. And this turnkey company was using a third-party property management company. Was not us. It quickly became a pyramid scheme. The only thing I can think of, and everything I'm going to say here is this is just my impressions, my thoughts about what happened. I'm not going to mention names, but here's what I think happened. Turnkey investors have a tendency the people who buy the turnkey properties have a tendency to have a lot of money. And are looking they've heard real estate's great, and they're awesome, and they're loving, and they're wanting to get into it, and they're going to make, millions of dollars in it. And so they kind of go in half-cocked, right? Some of us call it stupid money. So you got to be careful. If you got stupid money, you want to get smart quick, because you're going to lose a lot of your stupid money if you're not smart. So what ended up happening was, I honestly think that they totally started out, they wanted to be legit, and they wanted to do everything by the books. But what happened was they just couldn't keep up with demand, right? So the whole thing about turnkey is you buy the house. A turnkey provider, he buys the house, he rehabs the house, he puts a tenant in the house, and then he sells the house. I mean, in a perfect world, when they do the buy it and they rehab it, they're going to do a real good job rehabbing it, and then they're going to put a tenant in it, and they're going to put a good tenant in it, and they're going to make sure. I mean, if a house hasn't had anybody in it for multiple years, there's going to be issues, right? The drains are going to solidify. You know what I mean? When there's water going through a drain, like a galvanized pipe, then it's constantly got pressure, and it's removing anything that's starting to clog up stuff, whatever. But if it doesn't have water in it for a long time, then it starts to rust up inside, and it gets just full of crap, right? And then all of a sudden you try and turn the water on, and it's no longer draining. Or the water doesn't work. It's full of sediment, or what do I want to say? Anyways, you get my point. So a lot of times what's happening with these guys is that they're getting a tremendous amount of demand. So they're having to buy bottom of the barrel houses. They're not able to pick and choose. I mean, they're always trying to pick and choose and trying to get the best deals, but a lot of cases they're getting houses that need a tremendous amount of work. Like, I would look at them and be like, no way, but I don't have their demand. And so what happened is that they bought a bunch of these houses and they needed a tremendous amount of work. They're under super tight timelines. They're trying to get them done as fast as they can. They got contractor issues, trying to get contractors in to do the work as cheaply as possible and as quickly as possible. I mean, the three rules are price, speed, and quality. You get to pick two, right? So most of the time they're doing price and they're doing speed. They're not getting quality, right? So, typically what you want to do is, the way I do it, and I'm not a turnkey guy, but I mean, I do a lot of properties for myself. You buy the house, you rehab the house and you do a good job. You do a little bit better than, in these low income houses, you do a little bit better than the market average, right? So, I'm not saying put granite in or any of that crap. I'm talking about, you're just going to make a nicer house, give a nicer quality product to the tenants. There's a reason why my average tenant stays over 4 years in our properties. And it's because we try and do a little bit nicer remodel and then a little bit nicer, give them a nicer house. So you do a little bit nicer rehab, you put them in the house, you put a tenant in the house, and then those first 2 or 3 months, you're going to have issues. Stuff you just didn't plan on. I mean, when we move a tenant in after a fresh rehab on a house, I tell them, hey, you're going to have some issues. It's unfortunate, and I'm sorry ahead of time, but we didn't live in the house while we were rehabbing it, so we don't know, day-to-day operation of running the toilets, throughout the day and running the tub and running the shower and, doing all this other stuff. You're going to have issues, right? Because the contractors are working on it. They're not living in it. They're just working on it. So, you buy it, you rehab it, you do a little bit nicer rehab, you put a tenant into it, you spend 2 or 3 months with the tenant so you can work out all the kinks, because there's going to be kinks. And then, at that point in time, then that's when I think you need to be, if you're a turnkey guy, that's when you need to sell. The problem comes that you get an investor who shows up and he's like, okay, I don't want to buy one house from you, Mr. Turnkey guy. I want to buy 20 houses, or, I want to buy 10 or 20 or 30 houses. And it's okay that you don't have inventory right now. How long will it take you to get it for me, right? So the problems that came up in Indy were that these guys didn't have the inventory, right? And so they had these investors coming in saying, I want to buy 20 properties. And they were like, well, we don't have it. Well, when can you get it? And then the turnkey guy's like, well, if everything goes great, I could probably have it all done for you in 6 months. And so the investor's like, okay, I'll buy them. I'll pay you now, and you just give me the keys to the properties, in 6 months. Get them all up online in 6 months. You can gradually put them online or whatever. And so so the investor's like, and they're like, woohoo, I just sold 30 properties. And they have every intention of doing everything right. And they have every intention of putting a property up and getting it, buying a house and rehabbing it, doing it right. And then, putting a tenant in it. And then, working out the kinks in it. And then it just goes horribly south. What happens is they can't find the properties, right? Or they buy the properties and then they can't find the crews to rehab them, right? So, you're constantly, when you're a turnkey guy and you're trying to get this stuff done as quickly as possible, I mean, you're going through the crews like that. I mean, the guys who want to work in these neighborhoods are not the kind of guys that, you're not going to go out to a builder, you know what I mean? You're not going to go out and get the high quality, high-end guys, because these houses have a lot of problems, right? They're 100-year-old or 50 years old, and they've got a lot of problems. I mean, shoot, I'm 49, and I got freaking problems. My knees are done and all that sort of stuff. So a house, houses get neglected, especially in low-income areas. So they buy these houses, so they sell them to the investor under the promise that they're going to get them done in 6 months. 6 months comes and goes. They can't get these things done. The investor's all mad. Hey, I gave you 6 months to get these done. You didn't get them done. What's the scoop? So then, at some point in time, maybe they got another 2 or 3 months out of it before they got them done, or whatever. And at some point in time, I think what happened is that the turnkey guy here in Indy, he just started telling people, look, your cash flow should have been about $400 a month, right? I'm just going to pay you your cash flow, right? So that makes the investor happy. Hey, I'm getting my $400 a month. That's what I wanted. I wanted my $400 a month. So I'm cool. I'm happy. And then the turnkey guy is like, once I get it done, then it'll be off my docket. I'm not paying, right? So the owner thinks, okay, this guy has incentive to get my property rehabbed and put a tenant into it. The problem is that this turnkey guy in India that got in trouble, he was buying houses at 10 grand. He was selling them for 50 or 60 grand. So let's say he buys it at 10 grand, he sells it for 50 grand under the promise that it'll be done in 6 months, right? He just made a 40 grand profit. And he's got to pay you $400 a month. He can do 100 properties a month. So all of a sudden it's like, he still has every intention of rehabbing the house, but it's his problem. I only got to sell one house and I just paid off 100 people's, they're happy they got their $400 a month. But it's a pyramid scheme. And when you're doing 100 to 150 a month, when does that pyramid scheme blow up, right? And I think that's what happened. So the property manager just got into a bad spot, made incredibly bad decisions, and started doing some crazy stuff. And I mean, he's going to be in deep trouble. And the wholesaler who was, or the turnkey company that was depending on the property manager to rehab those properties and to get them up and profitable, he's in a world of hurt too. Maybe he knows, maybe he doesn't know, I don't know. But that's what's happening. So that's what's happened here in Indy. Last year we had this big wholesaler, or I say turnkey guy, and he was selling properties, and supposedly the property manager was rehabbing them, but the property manager couldn't keep up. And so they didn't stop the machine to get caught up. They even grew the machine, and it became huge. So those guys they just grew the machine too big, too fast. They couldn't keep up with it, and they just caused a lot of trouble. So I mean, that's what I see was what happened. That's speculation on my part. I mean, I had to deal with, we took over about 100 properties that were messed up in that whole thing, and by the end of it, I don't want any part of any of their properties. I think almost every property manager in Indy doesn't want any part of their properties. I get people who literally call me begging me to take their properties, and it's just, they're a mess. And I mean, I want to help, but at the same time, we had a lot of people who, they couldn't afford it, right? You can't afford, I mean, on some of these, we were averaging 10 to 20K turns on properties that were supposedly rehabbed. I mean, it's just a mess. So anyways, so that's what I think happened. I think that if you're coming out here to Indy and you're going to do turnkey, maybe you don't necessarily need to be here in Indy. You don't even need to come out. I think it would be smart for you to come out and meet who you're dealing with. But I think, you at a minimum, you need to have third-party evaluations on everything. So if you're buying a house, sight unseen, you need to have somebody look at it. Even if it's a turnkey guy and they got a great reputation, you need to, at a minimum, you got to send somebody over to take pictures or take video. I would recommend video. Or I think you need to get a inspector to go through the property before you close. You want to make sure the property is done. You want to get as much information as you can. You want to see if you can get, you want to get the leases, copies of the leases. You want to get copies of the ledger. You want to see the reports that the tenant was paying on time. And you want to see, if you can, get the applications. And you may want to consider either staying with the property manager or going with a different one. But you need to vet that out separately, right? Don't trust that the turnkey guy has your best interests at heart. You need to find out how good their property management is. You need to talk to the property management side and get some referrals from them and make sure that's who you want to stay with. It's buyer beware, baby. Caveat emptor. You need to make sure that that the property you're buying from a turnkey guy, you've done your own due diligence on what the value of the home is, right? Don't trust their valuations. You want to find out from yourself what what it should rent for. I mean, we offer a $5 CMA. We could tell you what an investment's worth, or what the neighborhood is selling, quarter-mile radius. We offer, and I'm not trying to sell this stuff. I'm just offering this just because I just feel like you guys need protection. $5 CMA, we'll do a comparative market analysis, quarter-mile radius, active, pending, and solds over the past year, and leases over the past 2 years within a quarter-mile radius. So we'll do, for $100, we'll do a video. We'll go over and videotape the property. It's high def. You can see some of our other videos on our channel of some of the properties that we rent out. We'll go out and do a high def video with a stabilization camera, and we walk around. We point out all the issues that we see. We can give you a rough estimate of what we think it's going to take work-wise. I mean, I'm not going to create a scope of work for the $100, but we'll kind of give you a rough estimate. Oh, it's probably like 7 to 10K or whatever. But it could be very minimal, but at least you'll have eyes on the prize. You know what I'm saying? So you can see what your house looks like, and then so you want to make sure you're getting your values. Check those out. You want to check your rental rates. I like the website hotpads.com, HOTPADS.com. You can plug in an address and it'll pull up a map view, and it's fed off of Zillow or Trulia, which are both the same company. But you can pull up a map view of your property. You can see all the available rentals around your property. So 3-bedroom, 1 bath, oh, there's 750, there's 750, there's 800. And if the turnkey guy's telling you, oh no, yours should rent for 900 or 10 or 1,000, then I would, maybe they're getting that and they got a good tenant for you, but at the same time, I would figure that you're not going to get more than 750, 800. And if that worst case scenario is okay with you, I mean, I'm a worst case scenario kind of guy. If I'm looking at a property and I go, okay, if I only got 750 a month, I'm okay with that. Then then keep going. But you want to do your own due diligence on those stuff. So your values, you want to get your own due diligence. You don't want to count on them. You don't want to count on them for the rent prices. Call another property manager and see what they think. Hey, I got this property I'm looking at. It's over here. It's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. What do you think it'll rent for? And then get the property inspected or get somebody to get video of it. I mean, you need to have eyes on the prize. You need to know what's going on with your properties before you make these investments, folks. Because I've watched a lot of people lose their entire retirement funds over the past year, and because they just made dumb purchases. So anyway, I'm Lee Smith, spouse of buying houses. I'll do the famous thing my kids are always joking about because they watch a lot of YouTube. Click the subscribe button. You know what I'm saying, brother? All right, man. Thank you, guys. Let me know if you want something else, me to talk about anything else here in Indianapolis or in the rental markets. Thank you. Lee Smith, spouse of buying houses.